The next thing we want to talk about is the ruffling or gathering foot. And it just depends on what your machine type is on what it is called, but they are both the same thing. They look pretty much the same. The Baby Lock one is a little bit more robust than I've seen some of the others, but they all have the same components. They have this little plate along the bottom, a channel, and then you put your fabric under here and the attachment there. When you are just ruffling, which is what we're talking about, you will set your fabric underneath this. This channel here is for when you are trying to connect your ruffled fabric to a piece of fabric that is not being ruffled. So what's happening, what this plate here is doing, is it's preventing this fabric up here from being impacted by these front feed dogs, which are pulling the fabric at a 2 times speed versus the back, which is going its normal speed. And that 2 times speed is what helps create your ruffles. So let's go ahead and get started. There are 2 settings that have to be changed to make this happen. Number 1, you want to make sure that your stitch length is moved up. I usually stitch between a 2.5 and a 3. I've taken it all the way up to a 4. And then make sure your differential feed is set up as high as it can go. Mine's highest is a 2, and that is what most machines' highest is. So let's go ahead and knock this out, get started showing you how this works, because it's a really helpful tool if you do anything with gathers. I make a lot of little girl dresses, and they call for ruffles for days, so I use this quite often. Okay, so I'm going to line this up in here, and I'm just going to start sewing. So you can see that that gathered. Let me get a better pair of scissors to cut this. That's a maniacal pair of scissors. Gave me nice little ruffles. And a lot of times this is more than enough for whatever your project is. However, for myself, because like I said, I do a lot of little girl dresses, they have a lot of volume in them. So it requires me to gather it a little bit more intensely. And how I do that, and this is so much better than doing it on a standard sewing machine, because you have all this extra help. The thing I hate about doing this with my standard sewing machine is I often break the thread. And the good thing about doing it on your serger is even if that so happened to happen, you have this backup safety thread that you can use. So what I just did was I popped my middle or left needle thread out so that I had access to it aside from all of these other threads here. And you'll also notice that I chained off a little bit extra so that I would have room to do this. Technically, I probably should have started down here where I really did chain off extra, but this will work as well. So I just grab this and you just start pulling and look at those ruffles come together, and then you obviously spread them out, make them even. I tend to grab onto this end and kind of twirl it around my finger so I don't wind up taking taking everything that I've done off and out of play. But as you can see how quickly and easily that comes together, it's a really handy foot to use. And then just real quickly, because I have the fabric here, I will show you what it looks like when you do both. So I'm going to set one up under there, and I'm going to set one up here. So just know when you're doing this, I'm using 2 pieces of fabric that are the same size. You should truly be using, whatever's going to be ruffling should be much longer, because obviously more is going to be taken up. So let's go ahead and give this a go. And I tend to stick my finger behind when I'm ruffling, because that's how the teacher who taught me how to use my serger told me to do it. So that's why you see my hand back there. I don't know that it's necessary on machines nowadays, but it was certainly helpful when I learned it then. So I've just kind of always done it. But you can see my bottom fabric has ended well before my top fabric, which is what you want. Well, I mean, technically you should be sizing them together. But you can see I have these lovely little pleats, and they are attached to this, and it's straight. So this is actually really, really handy for little girls' dresses or adult dresses that call for a ruffle along the bottom. It's a one and done kind of deal. You're ruffling and you're sewing all at the same time. And because we are at a 2.0 gather, what you would expect to have the best outcome is, and you can see technically here, this kind of shows it, 2 to 1. So what I would want is the piece that I want ruffled, I want it to be 2 times as long as the piece that I don't want ruffled. Hopefully this helps. If you have any questions, be sure to leave them below, and we will try and get back to you as quickly as possible. Or you can always reach out to us on Facebook.